So a few months ago, I posted a video talking about why I believe the classic point system in Call of Duty Zombies is a lot better than the new point system that they've done ever since kind of Black Ops 4 and into Cold War. I know the point systems between those two are just a little different, but the overall idea of them are relatively similar. And I had a lot of interesting points to bring up in that video, but I wanted to do a whole nother video talking more specifically about what Treyarch can do in order to please everyone, in order to please people who enjoy the new point system or those who prefer the classic point system. Now, obviously, with the recent rumors about a classic mode coming to Black Ops 6 Zombies, I think that would be an interesting way in order to please everyone by having the classic mode having the classic point system and then the standard mode just having the new point system. But for the future of Zombies, I don't know if it's a great direction to just have the community split off between a classic and a new mode for every game. Maybe that's okay just for Black Ops 6, but when it comes to Black Ops 7 and onward, I think it's better for them to just nail down one specific system that works across the entire game, and I came up with an idea that would kind of mix both systems in a way that I think would please everyone. Well, maybe not actually everyone, because to do this system, you probably would have to take out the rarity system as well as the loadout system, and I know some people like those systems, but ultimately, I don't think they're required in order for the advantages of those systems to work to come into play. I think there's other ways to get the advantages of those systems into the game. Those advantages being stuff like the weapons being more properly balanced because of the rarity system. I think you can do that regardless of having a rarity system or not. And then loadouts, obviously, people who love the camo grind love to be able to load in the game with any gun they want. But I've talked about this before. I think there's definitely ways for them to implement ways of getting your loadout weapon directly. You just have to actually do something on the map in order to get it. And I don't think fans of the camo grind would necessarily be that pissed if that was a thing. Or maybe just having separate modes specifically made for just camo grinding if they wanted to do something like Onslaught again, or maybe some sort of survival experience that's on the main maps themselves, kind of like what Transit did with Town, Farm, and Bus Depot. They can definitely find different ways to do it. I don't think you need the loadout and rarity system in order to please those types of players who want to be able to do stuff like that a lot easier. But getting back to the point system itself, I think using the classic point system as a starting point is a lot better, just because that's the system that Zombie started with, a lot more people are familiar with, and so I think you can work off that a lot better than you could work off of the new system. And then we have to look at why did they decide to change the point system, and Kevin Drew himself has come out and said that the reason for it is because Treyarch believes that they shouldn't be punishing players for playing the game fast. They shouldn't be punished for just killing zombies and not playing the quote-unquote right way. Which, side note, don't be an asshole and come after Kevin Drew about that story about his brother playing zombies and him saying that's one of the reasons he decided to make this change. He wasn't saying that was the reason. He was just saying for him personally that was one of the reasons that got him motivated to maybe want to adjust the system a bit. I don't think it's necessarily like him saying he changed it because his brother didn't like it. And I do still disagree with that overall philosophy, because I do think it's okay for a game to encourage certain playstyles, which would mean other playstyles might be less beneficial for the player. But that's not to say that playing that way is going to immediately ruin your game. You could certainly still play the game just fine, get through the map, and get to a decently high round by not point maxing and just killing the zombies normally. I don't think that's impossible. It's just that the game had this built-in skill gap where the more knowledge you know about how much health the zombies have at certain rounds and how many points they're going to give you for certain things, you're able to take advantage of that and get way more points. So it's like you're not having the same amount of points every single game at the same exact time like you do in a game like Cold War. I think it's just a lot more interesting on that front. But what if there's a way to make a system that not only could encourage players playing fast, but also could encourage you to take advantage of that skill gap I was just mentioning, involving the different point values that you can get by trying to point max? Which essentially means you can play either way, or you can try to do a combination of both to get the most amount of points possible, which I think would just make games a lot more interesting. Now, this idea is taking a lot of concepts from other games and kind of mixing it into Zombies, and it's honestly an idea I'm surprised they never went ahead and did, and this is simply just a point multiplier system. So obviously with the classic system, you get a different amount of points based on how you deliver the final blow to the zombies, and I decided to rework it just a little bit in order to make it work a bit better with this system. So for this idea, it would still be 10 points per hit with a bullet. So if you shoot a zombie 8 times with a pistol, you're going to get 80 points total. Now the actual finishing blow kill will give you 60 points, a headshot will give you 100 points, and a melee kill will give you 115. I know in the prior games it was 130. I think that was just a little too much, so let's make it 115. Now where this point multiplier comes into play is the faster you're killing zombies, the more points you're going to get on top of the points you're already getting here. So just as an example, if you kill 5 zombies within 5 seconds, that last zombie you killed will now give you a bonus of 15 points. So your kill is not just going to reward you with 115, assuming it was a melee kill. It's now going to give you 130. And if you kill another one right after, like I'm talking within like a 1 to 2 second interval, it's now also going to give you 130 for that kill. And that's going to continue until you get to the next threshold. Let's say there's different thresholds, and maybe the next one is 20 zombie kills within, let's say, like 15 seconds. Then you would now also get another bonus. Maybe it'd be an additional 15. So now it's going to be 145 for those melee kills instead of just 115, which it would have been originally. Now you might be saying this sounds completely overpowered. You're going to be able to get an insane amount of points, but only if you're actually killing zombies that quickly. And obviously in the early rounds, there's just not enough zombies in order to keep that up too much. This is something that's going to make a bigger difference in the later rounds, but in the earlier rounds, there's not enough zombies to keep this score multiplier going. And especially because the round's going to end, it will always end your multiplier. There's really no way to keep your multiplier going in between rounds because there's a decent gap in between rounds that the multiplier is just definitely going to go away. Because if you know how any point multiplier systems work, once that point multiplier ends, once you stop killing zombies within like 1 or 2 seconds from each other, it just ends. It goes back to 0. So now you start from scratch and you're just getting the normal amount of points. So ultimately, you'll definitely be getting a hell of a lot of points by just killing zombies as fast as you can, just like a lot of people do in Cold War. They just go for headshots. If you just keep doing that in the early rounds, you'll probably get a decent amount of points by the end of it. But you can also just play it like how you did it in classic zombies, where you shoot them in the leg a bunch, you knife them, you find another zombie, you shoot them in the leg, you knife them. You're probably not going to be getting any score multipliers because you're not really killing them that fast, but you're still getting a decent amount of points regardless. You're probably both going to be getting a similar amount of points even though you're playing in a different way. And you might be saying, well, Fusion, you were just saying before how you like the idea of having different play styles that give you a different amount of points, but now isn't the system just going to be giving you the same amount of points no matter what? Not necessarily, because if you're really damn good at the game and you want to find a way to mix both these systems together, well, guess what? You can do that. If you want to try to go so fast but still point max, that would be very hard, but obviously doable. You can shoot them all in the leg and then wait till maybe they are, low health, and then go for headshots on each of them all at once to kind of like take advantage of that point multiplier as much as possible. And obviously you need a decent amount of zombies around in order to really take advantage of that, which will start to happen in the later rounds. But I think there's a lot of interesting ideas that people can come up with this system. You can like maybe take an SMG that's a little weaker in the later rounds, shoot the zombies a bunch to get a lot of points out of it, and then just destroy them with your wonder weapon because you know you're going to get a point multiplier from it. And obviously wonder weapons don't really reward you as many points, but because of the multiplier, you will be getting more. So it'll actually still work in the end. So you can still use your powerful weapon that you wanted to use and don't have to worry too much about the points it's getting, but you can still take advantage of the weaker guns in the game, which is what people want. They want those idea of point guns in order to max it to its fullest potential. Now, obviously this system is only going to work if you also balance the guns properly. You can't be having a system like Black Ops 1 where all of the guns like these sniper rifles and shotguns are just not very good. If they're not good for points and they're not good for damage, they're just completely useless altogether. You don't want to have a system like that. I think it's okay to have some bad guns, don't get me wrong, but I think you have to make them all be useful when you pack punch them. I think it's completely fine to have some guns that are just absolutely shit out of the box, but make it so when you pack punch them 3 times, they're gonna end up being pretty decent enough to at least kill zombies. I don't think they all have to be like amazing guns. I think it's okay to have some differences in the power. I think that's actually what made some of the classic games a lot more fun. It was more interesting hitting the box. You're not sure what you're gonna get. You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna get a really bad gun or a really good gun. Sometimes you have to challenge yourself with a really bad gun if that's all you got, it's all the points you had left. But and then new games, it's kind of like everything's just viable, everything's fine. So there's really no like completely shit weapons that are really hard to use, hard to deal with. So I think it's okay to have some bad guns. Just make it so they're all decent when they're pack-a-punched, so you can at least use whatever you want. It's just some of them are going to be harder to use in the earlier rounds. But ultimately, you want to make sure that those low-point guns, like shotguns and snipers, make sure they're really damn good. Make sure they're really powerful like they are in Black Ops 3, so you don't have a situation where people are like never going to touch those guns because they'd rather just use an AR that's not only good for points, but also good for killing zombies. But ultimately with this system, even if a gun is really powerful, it could still be decent with points as long as you're just killing the zombies as fast as possible. If you want to use a sniper rifle from the beginning, you could do that. You honestly don't need to rely on the point guns. You could just rock, whatever sniper you want. You just to make sure you're killing them really fast, or else you're not going to be able to get as many points as possible. And I think speedrunners already know what I'm talking about when I discuss this, because that's already kind of what they do. When they play the classic Call of Duties and they're trying to point max, they're also trying to play as fast as humanly possible because they're speedrunning. So if you watch any speedrun of a map like Origins or the Rise and Rock, like any map that has speedrunning, you're gonna see players kind of doing this, where they're really fastly shooting the zombies, but they're also trying to point max at the same time because they need to make sure they have enough points for the doors. So ultimately, I think this new idea would just give so much more strategies to how you play zombies. There's so many different ways to play. You can still play just like you do in Cold War, where you just, again, go as fast as possible, or you can play like the classic system, or you can do a mix of both, and that would add so many more different strategies. And depending on the gun you're using, it would also change your strategy a bit, which makes the guns feel different and makes the guns feel more unique. Please, Treyarch, please, this would be a fantastic idea, and I would absolutely love it if they attempted it. But don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to act like this system would 100% be perfect in practice, because I'm not a game developer. I don't know how complex this would actually be to implement, and especially the fact that it would be probably really hard to make sure the point values of everything else in the game, like pack-a-punch, perks, and doors and all that, it would be really hard to properly balance those along with a perk system like this, because based on what I've been describing, it clearly shows that there could be huge varieties in the amount of points you're getting, and they probably have to find a way to really balance the points of everything on the map properly. But I think it's doable, and I think it would just be so much more interesting than the point system they do nowadays, which is honestly what I've been thinking about for quite some time. I'm wondering if they decided this new point system because it's probably easier to decide the points of everything on the map, because players tend to get the same amount of points by the same round for pretty much almost every game, regardless of who you are. It doesn't matter your playstyle, you're probably going to get the same amount of points by the same round majority of your games. But like I said before, I think that's boring. I think that makes all the games feel too similar, and I think it's a lot more interesting when there's a lot more variety between your matches, and I think a system like this would provide that. And looking back on it, I do think it's possible to make the loadout system work with this idea. Not that I'd want it to, because I personally don't like the loadout system, but I think it's possible. Now, rarities would be a bit more troubling, but I think it's definitely possible. And what you probably end up happening, what would probably be the main strategies people would go along with, is that they'd have one point gun and they'd have one damage gun, and people would probably just take the point gun, light up the zombies, and then pull out the damage gun and just completely kill the zombies as fast as you can to really get that point multiplier as fast as possible. So you got all the points from just shooting the zombies in the leg with your point gun, but now you're getting even more from the point multiplier. And would that be like necessarily a bad thing? Would that ruin the meta of the game? I actually think it would make it more interesting, because like I said, people would be using very different types of guns. Instead of just using the Gallows and the Howers and the M16s, you'd see people using SMGs with shotguns, and like something like that just sounds a little more interesting to me than the type of meta we usually have in Call of Duty Zombies. So I don't know. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. I'm really curious to see what you guys think of this system. If you think it sounds stupid, let me know. I'm totally fine with some constructive feedback. I'm not trying to say this would definitely work 100%. Just in my head right now, I'm thinking this would actually be really cool. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll see you all in my next one. Peace out.